In this video, you will learn how to use equations to solve problems. I'm going to walk you through 4 different problems, and each problem that you encounter is going to be a little bit different. So there's really not one set way to set up a problem with an equation. But hopefully this will give you a feel of some of the varieties that you might see and help you with the thought process that you need to set up any word problem. So problem 1 says Aaron took a taxi cab from his office to the airport. He had to pay a flat fee of $3 plus 85 cents per mile. The total cost was $8.95. And the question is, how many miles was the taxi trip? So when you set up any equation, you want to begin with identifying what is your unknown. So what are you trying to find? Well, this question is asking for how many miles was the taxi trip. So the number of miles is your unknown, and we can let that be our variable. So x will equal the number of miles. Now we need to set up an equation. So think through what the problem is saying and figure out, without putting numbers in yet, figure out how to set up an equation. So here, for example, you know that you have a total cost, which includes a flat fee plus the cost for the miles that you travel. So we can say that if we take the flat fee plus the mileage cost, that would equal your total cost. So it's helpful to think through the equation in words before you plug in the numbers. From here we can plug in numbers. The flat fee is $3. The total cost was $8.95. And the tough part is figuring out how to write this mileage cost. So it says 85 cents per mile. So if he travels 1 mile, it's 85 cents times 1. If it's 2 miles, it's 85 cents times 2, or $1.70. 3 miles, 85 times 3, etc. So if we take 85 cents times the number of miles, so 85 cents times the number of miles, which we said was x up here, that's going to give me the mileage cost. So we have 0.85 or 85 cents times x. So we have $3 plus 0.85 times x equals $8.95. So that is how you set up your equation in this example. And then from here, you can solve. So to solve, we do reverse order of operations. So we begin with addition and subtraction first. So to get rid of everything with the x, we need to get rid of the 3 and get rid of the 0.85. So be careful. Notice the 0.85 is actually being multiplied by the x. Even though there's a plus sign in front of it, it's 85 times x. So this we're going to do later. But we have $3 being added with 85x. So if we get rid of the $3 first, that would be our first step. So the $3 is being added to this. So to get rid of the 3, I do the opposite of adding, which would be subtraction. So I subtract $3 from both sides. When I subtract $3 from the left side, 3 minus 3 gives me 0. So we have 0 plus 0.85x, which would just be 0.85x. On the right side, $8.95 minus $3 would be $5.95. So I now have 0.85x equals 5.95. From here, this is 0.85 times x. So to get rid of the 0.85, I need to do the opposite, which would be divide. So I need to divide both sides by 0.85x, or by 0.85. On the left side, the 0.85s would cancel. On the right side, 595 divided by 0.85. If you use a calculator, you would get 7. If you do it by hand, here's how you do that. You divide by 0.85. We can actually move the decimal over 2 places here and 2 places here to make this into 595 divided by 85. And from here, if we plug a 7 up there on the top, we would find that 7 times 85 would indeed give me 595, which would subtract with no remainder. So my answer is 7. So the question now is, what does this mean? What do we find? Well, what this was the number of miles that was traveled. So my answer is that the trip was 7 miles. Problem 2 involves some geometry. So we are told that the perimeter of a trapezoid is 80 centimeters. The parallel bases are 22 centimeters and 36 centimeters. The lengths of the other two sides are consecutive odd integers. What are the lengths of these other two sides? So this involves a lot of different pieces of information that you need to be aware of ahead of time. So first, we need to know what a trapezoid is. Well, a trapezoid is a shape with just one set of parallel sides. So something like this. So it's a quadrilateral, 4 sides, where just these two sides, the top and the bottom, or left and right, are parallel. So this would be an example of a trapezoid. And it says the parallel bases are 22 centimeters and 36 centimeters. So parallel means they don't intersect, so the top and the bottom are parallel. They're straight across from each other. So the one would be 22 centimeters, and then the other is 36 centimeters. All right, and then we're told as well that the other two sides, so the left and the right, are consecutive odd integers. So how do you set that up? Well, consecutive means they're in a row, so like 1, 2, 3, 4, that would be consecutive, but they must be odd. So consecutive odd integers would be like 1, 3, 5, 7, 9, 11. So like 1 and 3, for example, would be consecutive and odd. Or 9 and 11. They're consecutive, they're one after the other, and they're odd. So notice that whatever the first one is, the other is 2 more than it. So what we're trying to find are the lengths of the other two sides. So these two sides here, the left and the right. So if one side is x, the other side is 2 more than that because it's a consecutive odd. Right, looking up here, 1 plus 2 gives me 3. 9 plus 2 gives me 11. So whatever this side is, we add 2 to it to get the other side. All right, so that would be your setup. So look at the picture, and it's always helpful to create a picture, that way you understand what the question is asking. So from here, we also need to know what perimeter means. Perimeter is the distance all the way around. So if I were to add all these lengths together, that would give me the perimeter. So if I add x plus 2 plus 22 plus x plus 36, we know that's going to equal 80. So that is my equation. So a different order here on the slide, but same addition problem. We're adding all 4 sides together. 22 plus 36 plus x plus 2. And that perimeter is equal to 80. So from here, we now need to solve the equation. So to do that, we must simplify first. So 22 plus 36, that would give me 58. All right, so we have 58 there, and then plus x, and then plus x plus 2. This is really the same thing as adding x and adding 2, and we can get rid of the parentheses. So from here, we can still combine. 58 plus 2 would be 60. And then plus, we have x plus x. So there's an assumed 1 here. We have 1x plus 1 more x. That gives me 2 x's. So we have 60 plus 2x equals 80. So we have simplified. Now we need to solve. So to solve, we do reverse order of operations. So we begin with addition and subtraction first, and then we go from there. So be careful because we see the plus 2x. It could be tempting to do something with the 2, but remember this 2 next to the x means we're multiplying 2 times x. So we don't do multiplication until later. The 60, however, is being added with the 2x. So the 60 would be the first thing to get rid of. So to get rid of the 60, which is being added to the 2x, we do the inverse, which would be subtraction. So if we subtract 60 on both sides, 60 minus 60 would cancel, which gives me 0, which would cancel. So we have 2x left over equals 20 on the right side. So from here, we can get rid of the 2 with the x. So the 2 is being multiplied with the x. So to get rid of multiplication, I need to divide. So I divide both sides by 2. The 2's would cancel. I have x on the left, and then 20 over 2, which is 10 on the right. So my solution is x equals 10. So this side is 10. And then the other side is 10 plus 2, which would be 12. So 10 and 12 would be my solutions. Problem 3 hopefully is a little bit easier to set up for you. Here we have 4 less than half a number is 15. And the question is to find the number. So to set up this equation, we simply take word for word what is stated and then converting this into math notation. So the word is means equals, and then 15 would be 15. So something equals 15. So the left side here is the more complicated part. So 4 less than half a number is 15. So half a number would be 1/2 times x. 1/2 times some unknown number. Alright, and then 4 less than that means we take this and subtract 4. So my equation would be 1/2 x minus 4 equals 15. And if I wanted to, instead of 1/2 times x, I could also set this up as x over 2 minus 4 equals 15. So both of those would give you the same result. If we use it this way, with the 1/2 times x minus 4, we need to do reverse order of operations. So we're going to begin with addition and subtraction first, and then go from there. So we see the 4 being subtracted. So to get rid of the 4, we can add 4 to both sides. So the -4 plus 4 on the left side would cancel out. I'm left with 1/2 x on the left. On the right, I have 15 plus 4, which would be 19. So I have 1/2 times x equals 19. So from here, we need to get rid of the 1/2. And we've stated before in a previous video that there are 2 ways to get rid of the 1/2, or 2 ways to think of it. The one way is to divide by 1/2, because this is 1/2 times x. So to get rid of the times, we divide. So we divide both sides by 1/2. The 1/2s cancel over here, so I'm left with x on the left side. And then on the right side, we have 19, and then divided by 1/2 is the same thing as multiplying by the reciprocal. So instead of dividing by 1 over 2, I multiply by 2 over 1. So 19 times 2 would be 38. So my solution is 38. And the other way you can think of this is right here at the 1/2 times x. I can get rid of the 1/2 by multiplying both sides by the reciprocal, which is what we really just did, because we divided by 1/2, which is the same thing as multiplying by 2 over 1. So I can just skip to this step where I multiply by 2 over 1, and this would cancel over here, which gives me x on the left, and then 2 over 1 times 19, which is 38 on the right. So either way, I get 38 as my solution. Here for the last problem, we are given a rectangle, and it says the length is 8 inches more than 3 times its width. If the perimeter is 125 inches, find the length and the width. Now, it's always helpful to draw yourself a picture to help you visualize what is happening. So here's your rectangle, and we have length and width. So the width would be same thing as the height. So the left and the right side would be your width. And in relation to that, the length is 8 inches more than 3 times the width. So if I take 3 times the width and add 8 inches more, that would give me the length. So the length would be 3 times W plus 8. Alright, so from here, I need to solve by setting up my equation. So there's different ways you can set this up. Perimeter simply means the distance all the way around. So I can just think of this as W plus then 3W plus 8 plus another 3W plus 8. And we know that would equal 125. So this is one way to do it. We can simplify the left side. W plus 3W plus 3W. Here's 1W plus 1 gives me 2. 2 plus 3 is 5. 5 plus 3 is 8. So we have 8W plus, then 8 plus 8 gives me 16. And that's equal to 125. So here's my simplified equation. And from here I can solve. So I can solve by doing reverse order of operations. So I begin with addition and subtraction first. So we have an 8 and a 16 to get rid of. The 8 is being multiplied with the W. The 16 is being added. So get rid of the addition first, and we do that by subtracting 16. 16 minus 16 would cancel. That gives me 8W on the left. 125 minus 16 would give me 109 on the right. And now here, to get rid of the 8, this is 8 times W. So I divide to get rid of the 8. So I'm left with a W on the left, and then 109 over 8 on the right, which I could divide out. And if you do that, you would have 109 divided by 8. So we have 1 times 8 is 8. Subtract, that gives me 2. Bring down the 9. So we have 9 there, and then a 3 there. 3 times 8 is 24. Subtract, and the remainder is going to be a 5. 29 minus 4 is 5. So I have 13, remainder of 5, so we write that as 5 over 8. So my final answer would be 13 and 5/8 for the width. And then the length, we can find the length by plugging 13 and 5/8 in for W. So this one, you have 3 times 13 and 5/8. You could just use a calculator if you want, so that might be a little easier for this one. But if you do it by hand, you would have, let's see, 109 over 8, that is W, and then multiply by 3, and then add 8. So 3 times 109 would be 327 over 8 plus 8. And if you do that, you should get 40. 327 over 8 is 40 with the remainder of 7. So 40 and 7/8 plus 8, which would be 48 and 7/8. So that would be the length, and 13 and 5/8 would be the width.